Hello in Silico enthusiasts. My name is Davide Montesarchio and this is the Digital Twin Theory, a podcast produced by the Virtual Physiological Human Institute about the future of personalized healthcare. Today, we will close an ideal trilogy started 3 months ago about the legal, ethical and social aspects connected to in silico medicine. In the 5th episode, we discussed with Elisabetta Biasin from KU Leuven about data and privacy rules and laws. In the 6th episode, we discussed about ethics with Michel Barbier from INRIA. And today, we will discuss about social implications and trust with Zita Van Horenbeeck, social scientist at the Virtual Physiological Human Institute and a PhD student at the Life Sciences and Society Lab of KU Leuven. So, good morning Zita and welcome to the Digital Twin Theory.
Good morning, Davide. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast. I'm very honored to be able to share my experiences today.
And I'm very happy that you are here with us. So, Zita, in silico medicine promises a breakthrough in healthcare. However, society did not always eagerly welcome such big changes in science and technology. I think, for example, about nuclear energy and GMOs, where there was a not in my own backyard or NIMBY effect that is connected to fear. So, could this happen also within silico medicine?
Yeah, in silico medicine promises to have a profound impact on the way that our healthcare as we know it today is organized. So I would imagine that if societal perspectives, needs and concerns are not taken into account from the get-go, I think that this could lead to resistance and a lot of debate, which is the case in the examples that you have given. So yeah, I think it's important to recognize and address these potential public resistance to these new technologies. If we look at the last century and marked by rapid advancements in the fields of, genetics, biotechnologies, and nuclear energy, we see a pattern of public resistance. Protests, heated debates, concerns that at the time often centered around environmental and health impacts. But what's especially interesting here is that these voices were generally only heard after the technologies reached the market. And in the field of science and technology studies, we call this a translation issue between the research and the real-life application. So this gap can only widen when the public is not involved throughout the technology's development. And GMOs and nuclear energy are just examples from the past, but we still see these similar resistance today. Think, for instance, about a few years ago, the widespread vaccine hesitancy during the COVID, it fueled a lot of concerns over personal freedom. And if we look now, AI faces similar challenges. Debates are ongoing about privacy, security, fairness, especially when it comes to application in areas like healthcare. So these examples really show us how critical it is to engage the public early on and not to only increase the acceptance or the trust, but also to ensure that these technologies address the social needs and concerns. And I think this holds up for in silico technologies as well. Public resistance, I don't think it should be seen as a result of a lack of understanding from the public or as a lack of knowledge on the side of society. When we frame resistance as a problem of public ignorance, we risk dismissing people's legitimate concerns, values, and lived experience, which I think are crucial for understanding how these new technologies will impact society. So trust is not simply built by filling knowledge gaps. I think it's earned through genuine engagement that respects and addresses these complexities that people bring. By involving the public from the beginning, developers can also anticipate these issues better and design with transparency and align their innovations with the needs of society they aim to serve. Because after all, the society should always be at the forefront of in silico medicine.
Apart from fear, what are the other sentiments that could society feel towards in silico medicine?
I think that's a tough question, first of all. I think it's really hard at this point to predict how society will react to in silico medicine. I think the only way to understand the sentiments of members of our society is to genuinely engage these different stakeholders early on in the development process, as I said. And I think that is key here. A variety of sentiments will come up once you go and talk to these different people in society. But even then, I personally would be very careful as a community not to treat the public as a single unified group. Because a lot of work in public and patient involvement in science has over and over criticized the notion of the public So rather than approaching engagement with a general public in mind, it might be effective to identify specific communities we want to engage and to reflect on how representative or inclusive these engaged publics or mini publics actually are. But I can imagine that a broad spectrum of sentiments beyond fear will appear, but these will vary depending on who you talk to. For some, I can imagine that in silico medicine might spark hope and excitement. And here I'm thinking in particular about those impacted by rare diseases, as in silico medicine promises new possibilities for diagnosis, treatment options in those cases. But for others, I think there will be definitely concern, skepticism, or healthy caution. And I think therefore transparency will be necessary. And engaging these different communities isn't just a matter of gathering feedback, but also understanding the range of sentiments as they might arise. I think by tapping into these perspectives early on, we can work together towards a future where in silico medicine resonates with the society it aims to serve.
You say that it is hard to say what are the society's sentiments apart from fear. And so, what is the science community doing to better understand society's sentiments, concerns, or perspectives towards in silico medicine?
I see a strong drive from the researching community, the in silico community themselves, to involve stakeholders, and a growing awareness as well about the role of social science, humanities, and etc. that play a role in this process. To give an example, for instance, in the focus groups, I saw that the modelers and the technical experts really gained valuable insights into these broader social implications of their work and just the discussion with societal stakeholders. So I think that it's very critical that these engagement efforts are not just outsourced and be done by social scientists, but involving the scientific community directly into these conversations enhances their institutional reflexivity. And I think by being a part of these exchanges, the researchers also are better positioned to adapt their approaches in ways that generally respond to these needs and values. So I think there is a drive from the community definitely to understand these sentiments better.
And in this sense, what is the in silico community doing in engaging and involving society in the path towards the realization of in silico medicine?
In the in silico community, we've seen in the past few years, we've seen quite a lot of efforts around stakeholder engagement. Speaking from the experience from the project that myself and the VPH Institute are a part of, like I think of the Silico World, SIMCO, SimCardioTest, EDIT, and REALM, we've made it a priority to bring in the voices from across the spectrum and to always keep the community at the center of what is done. We've organized multiple focus group discussions specifically to gather these diverse perspectives on this emerging field. And this was done with clinicians, patients, legal experts, modelers, and many more. And in the In Silico World project in particular, the social science partners of the Life Sciences Society Lab at Leuven, which I'm also a part of, we have executed an extensive 4-step stakeholder engagement approach. We started with literature review on the existing ELSI concerns on in silico medicine, then an internal survey within the community, and this led to the development of a list of public values. And this list then guided the focus groups discussions in Italy, Belgium, and Hungary. And the aim that we had in mind with these group discussions was to explore further the social, ethical, and legal implications of this emerging field. We really tried to hear the needs, concerns, and values of different stakeholders. And following this, my colleagues and I, we organized a 2-hour reflexive workshop during that same project. And this workshop really helped us bringing the insights that came from the focus groups back to the consortium members, encouraging them to reflect and consider ways to integrate these perspectives into their work. And I believe this step was crucial for the community. Too often, I think engagement activities end up being on the sideline without really impacting the development phase. And that's something we intended on addressing in this workshop. All of the topics that were raised during our step-by-step framework were also included in a policy brief and will also be included in the EDIT roadmap toward the uptake of the virtual human twin. So our stakeholder engagement approach also led us ourselves to reflect on our role as social scientists in such a big project, to which end we also wrote a publication. But I believe that societal members would play a central role in the research itself. That would be the best case scenario, but obviously that's easier said than done. And definitely something my own research focuses on. So while engagement is taken seriously in the projects that I've been a part of so far, we still see a lot of isolated activities with limited long-term impact. But I think that there's a potential for the community to join forces and make these initiatives truly count. And I think real change will require an institutional change within the in silico medicine field, but that starts with continued collaboration and commitment to integrating these societal perspectives at every step of the research process. And besides engagement, I think the field has also made a lot of outreach efforts, of which this podcast, for instance, is a great example. At the VPH Institute, for instance, we've been creating YouTube videos that explain the ins and outs of in silico medicine in a way that also should be accessible to members of the public. And I think all these initiatives together are very important to get the word out about this emerging domain.
You mentioned that there have been considerable efforts within the community to understand and consider the perspectives of various stakeholders, including members of the society, the public, patients, and also clinicians. Could you please give some examples of their primary concerns?
Yeah, there is a broad spectrum of topics that emerge during these focus groups and workshops. It will be hard to not go too in depth about all of them, because we would still be here tomorrow if I did. But because there is so much to be said and there's so much more to be explored. In silico technologies show great promise, and that was definitely recognized in the discussions. They promised to reduce the need for animal and clinical testing, enable personalized care, lower costs, and more, but they also bring a lot of challenges. Concerns in the discussions came up around data, about privacy, accessibility, and potential biases in the input, but also the output of the models. And participants also discussed broader societal impacts, like how these technologies might affect doctor-patient relationships and how we might have to shift the traditional understanding of expertise or responsibility or even decision-making. And the patients that I've been speaking with generally see these tools as new ways to support but not replace their clinicians. And another key issue that I think of is the potential strain on our already overburdened and overworked healthcare system. These predictions are enabled by in silico medicine, but they could also add to that load instead of alleviate it. And that's something that many respondents noted over and over again.
As a social scientist, what do you think could be the best and the worst case scenarios when in silico medicine will hit the society?
That's a tough one. I don't like to think in terms of worst case scenarios because I think that creates a lot of fear. And I hope that there won't be a worst case scenario, but I think this when these in silico technologies and the data in particular gets into the wrong hands. I think that's the worst case scenario for a lot of these stakeholders as well, is when insurance companies, for instance, would use the models to generate how much someone would pay for their insurance and to differ taxes that way. But I think that's a very worst case scenario. I think the best case scenario obviously is that in silico medicine does what it promises. It makes healthcare better and it takes into account all of these implications. And I mean, for research in the field of in silico medicine, I think the best case scenario would be for patients and members of the public and diverse subgroups of society to actually be involved within these projects. So not be only consulted to come in for a focus group, but actually be able to be an integral member of the projects themselves.
And in conclusion, what do you think is of utmost importance to better understand and involve the society?
I think we need to understand not only how these technologies work, but also how they fit or even sometimes clash with people's expectations, their privacy needs, their values around autonomy or their ideal care. I think we need to think beyond the development phase as well and consider issues like accessibility to these technologies or potential divides that they might create, inequalities when these technologies reach the market. So I think meaningful engagement with diverse groups can definitely help uncover these social impacts early on and shape the development in ways that they're genuinely aligned with societal needs. But this kind of engagement should go beyond just consultation. It's about making sure that these perspectives genuinely guide the direction of implementation of in silico medicine, so really looping society in and as early on as possible as a real research partner to build trust relationships between the community and society. And for the community itself, I think it's very important to look inward, to keep on reflecting, to internalize responsibilities for researchers to really reflect on their own assumptions and roles in earning society's trust. And once again, to join forces within the community, because I think that together we'll come further.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Zita, for this great discussion and the insights you provided about social implication of in silico medicine.
Thank you very much for having me on here.
And thanks as always to all our listeners. If you like this podcast and you want more episodes like this, show us your support by voting on the Spotify app and sharing our post on X, LinkedIn, and Instagram. That's all for today, folks. Until next month, have a great day.